Hello fish fools, Jeff here. So this is my 10-gallon Guppy and endler hybrid tank. And the fish in here are looking good. Population has rebounded. Thanks to Big Mama right here. She was one of the last females and she's had a bunch of babies that are growing up and she's about to have a bunch more, and these males are all over her. Well, so lately I've been focusing on my 10-gallon mutt guppy tank. For the past 3 or 4 weeks, I've been adding fish to that tank, showed a bunch of fish haul videos, and just recently last video I made was talking about the quarantine meds I'm going to add to that tank. So that tank had a guppy population, a colony maintaining about 30 guppies for years. And then over the past year, the population dropped down and I was down to, before I started gathering more fish, I was down to 2 males, and after losing the last females. This tank was pretty close to that situation where I was down to maybe a couple females, maybe down to 8 or so total guppies, guppy endler hybrids. But from there, it rebounded and now the population is back up again with all these nice healthy fish. So one contributing factor, I believe, was feeding them this more. This is Cobalt Smartemia baby brine shrimp alternative, prebiotics and probiotics. I think that's that in like Rapashi, and just feeding them more, or even maybe feeding them at all, because this 2020 was super busy and I haven't been able to keep up with my aquariums, but I'm glad that this tank did rebound. So it's one of the Amano shrimp that suck at eating hair algae. Look at all that hair algae in here. So that's actually why I'm pointing this tank out, because I'm about to do a water change on this tank, and often when I have plans to do things, move stuff around from one tank to another, is when I'm doing water changes and my hands are going to be in the tanks getting wet. So what I'm going to do is pull out a lot of this hair algae. It's like the covering all over Java moss and Rickia fluitans, but I'm going to pull a good chunk of that out because, for multiple reasons. I'm going to be setting up another tank, my 3-gallon cylinder tank, or resetting it up, or at least getting it running again. It's been empty, hasn't had any fish or plants in it for a while, and I'll get to that. But also because I recently got more plants. I ordered a bunch of plants on eBay that arrived recently. I did an unboxing video of the plants I received, and now those are all in that 10-gallon mutt guppy tank for the time being, but I'm going to need a place to put them, so I think I'm going to put some in here, some of the stem plants in here, like the Rotala indica, some Ludwigia repens, maybe some of the wisteria that I also got from my local fish store with some of the fish hauls. But yeah, so I want to clean this tank up with intentions of adding the stem plants in here. So I'm going to move a lot of this stuff over to my 3-gallon tank, and let's go over to that. Okay, so this is my 3-gallon tank. It's the cylinder tank. This was the 3rd tank I got when I was getting back into the fish keeping hobby. Like the first tanks I had were my 30-gallon Plants Library community tank and that Guppy Endler hybrid 10-gallon tank, which was my original quarantine tank. And then I got this. This was my second quarantine tank. I remember I was just browsing online, and I got this from Chewy.com. I think it was like 25 bucks, something like that. At the time, I was thinking, oh yeah, okay. Comes with a filter and a LED light hood. All right, that's a good deal. And I was thinking I could use it as a quarantine tank and use the quarantine medication packets like General Cure and erythromycin. Like one packet would do 10 gallons. I was like, all right, I can just do 1/3 of a dose, like a third of a packet in a 3-gallon. In hindsight, that was kind of a bad idea. When I had a batch of fish in here quarantining, I actually did have neon tetras in here that got ick that I didn't notice and moved them into my 30-gallon, and that got ick. Like one thing that sucks about this tank is just it's round, and that just distorts the view. Like if a fish was swimming at the side, you wouldn't even be able to see it. You'd have to come around. And this is next to my 29-gallon swordtail community tank. But yeah, but since that stint of quarantine, I then had a mosquito fish that was in my 5.5-gallon, which was my third quarantine tank. At the time, I was trying to find healthy guppies. It was actually not easy to find good healthy guppies, and there was a PetSmart that had a side tank that had snails and like babies in it, just fry from random library tanks they had. They just all dumped it in there, and then there was this mosquito fish in there. I thought it was a guppy. I mean, a female mosquito fish looks like a female guppy. I just thought it was like a wild guppy, and I thought it was kind of cool looking. It was pretty much just colorless, but had like a black line across its eye, which is one type of mosquito fish has. And yeah, so I thought it was a guppy, but then somewhere, just watching another video on YouTube, somewhere along the way, I realized, like, I saw a mosquito fish. I'm like, that's what I have. And then I was like, realized no wonder why it was pretty vicious. So it ended up going in this tank because this was the jail tank. So I just had that mosquito fish in here until it died, and then along the way, this was kind of serving as just a dumping ground for when I was pulling hair algae out of that 10-gallon tank. And if I had sick fish or like fish with like crooked spines, I was putting them in here. But for the longest time now, it's been empty. I don't even remember when. It was still quite a while back. I did clean it out, like all the algae in here. And at the time, there was like one Cryptolutea without any light or anything was still alive in there. But when I dumped everything out, I guess I messed up the roots, and that never grew back. And there was, you kind of see there's some snail shells in there. But anyway, I am now going to put some of that hair algae in here, if it mixed with the Java moss or whatever, if that grows. If not, either way, that's just going to be the base in here. But I'm going to put some wild guppies in here. I remember before I got the wild guppies in my what is now my wild guppy and pea puffer tank, I always intended to just get some of those feeder guppies, wild guppies, and just put them in here. Never did that, and ended up just having a 10-gallon tank for them anyway. But so I'm going to put some in here, and I'm going to show you where I'm going to get them. All right. So here on this table is just kind of my little experiment fish bowls. This is the 1-gallon tank that I set up to be a shrimp and snail tank. Neocaridina shrimp there. There's algae covering up, but there's a bladder snail right there. This is a 2-gallon tank. This has Neocaridina shrimp in it. But then there's these bowls. So this one has Java moss. This one has guppy grass. About a year ago, I got some guppy grass. I didn't really have any place to put it, so I put it in here. And there's fish in these. There are guppies. I haven't really paid any attention to it. I didn't know how many really there were. Every once in a while, I would dump a little bit of that Smartemia in here, fish food. But this one with Java moss, I put a female guppy in here that it was like crooked. It was like a L-shaped. It was like the worst crooked bent. I put it in here, and then she ended up having babies, and there's still some in there. And then, when I put the guppy grass in here, I took some of those babies and put them in here. And now there's quite a few of them in here. Let me see if I can point them out. Well, it's hard to see through the thick guppy grass. Okay, there's one. There's a male right there. But yeah, so this is just in the morning. This gets sunlight, and that's where it's keeping the plants growing. There's a fish right there. But so I just did a water test, which I haven't done, and there was no nitrates. I'm figuring with no nitrates, no ammonia, but the nitrates are sky high, and even the KH is like the highest I've ever seen in any tank. Usually my other tanks, when I don't do water changes, the KH drops, but somehow this was like, where the test strips, the highest reading is like green. This was like kind of like blue. It was that high. And the pH was super high too. That's another thing. Usually the pH drops, but it's like it was raised. Might have been around 8.4. But so whatever condition these wild guppies are in, I'm going to move them to that 3-gallon tank, and then maybe they can have a better life in there. And then they might be like super resilient just from being in here. But yeah, so I'm going to do that water change on that 10-gallon, move the hair algae into that tank with a little bit of Java moss, whatever it's clinging to, and then move some of these guppies in there, and then we'll take a look at it after. Alright, so I just pulled out a bunch of the hair algae and did a water change, and here we are. And some of that guppy grass and that bowl I put in here. So I had guppy grass in this tank years ago, early on. Got some guppy grass. It was growing really well. This was the one tank that it grew well in, and then when I did start getting hair algae way back then, I was using one of the first things I did was try Aquarium Co-op Easy Carbon, and instead of eradicating the hair algae, it killed the guppy grass. So try with guppy grass again, and next time I do another water change, I'll pull more out and do some more gravel backing. But as I mentioned, my 10-gallon muck guppy tank that has a lot of the new fish in that I got recently, among those were Siamese algae eaters. So I'm going to try those in here once they're done the quarantine process. I'm going to move 1 or 2 of those in here. See if they can do a good job of cleaning up any hair algae, because these Amano shrimp are terrible at it. They're hyped up as such great algae eaters, and I have had nothing but problems with that hair algae in this tank, and the amount of shrimp have been a disappointment. I've mentioned that over and over. But I think the Siamese algae eaters will do better, because I do know that they have done an excellent job cleaning up blackbeard algae in several of my tanks. Haven't really tested them on hair algae. This is the only tank that I have that problem with. But yeah, so fish are looking good. Some of the pygmy corridors are out now that I have less color. Right here, there is the tiny little bit of jungle val. You kind of see there's a little bit of roots, and that's all that's left of it. We'll see if that can come back. I never have had success with that. This is the last of it in any of my tanks. I did just in that recent plant purchase order from eBay. Jungle val was one of the plants among those, so that's going to go in my 30-gallon and see if I can have better luck this time around. All these bits of Java fern windalove, not that, that's guppy grass, but these, they were all tangled in with the hair algae and Java moss and all that stuff. I tried to pull out some pieces. This is the tank where all my windalove, Java fern windalove, came from. The original plant was here on this piece of Malaysian driftwood that's still kind of covered in this crud. But I have a nice plant of it here. Still a little bit remains, but like little pieces that have broken off and they have gotten all over. But that's where I propagated it from this tank, and I have it in lots of my other tanks, and it's doing really well in all of those. Alright. So that's what's going on here. Let's go check out the 3-gallon tank with the algae in it, and I'll show you the guppies that I'm moving over there. Alright, so there's hair algae with Java moss tangled up in it, and you can see bits of the Java fern windalove, and then here in this bag floating in the tank as they're acclimating are wild guppies from that 1-gallon bowl. So those were all born in there, and they're looking alright. There's 6 females and 3 males in here, so just for the hell of it, they're going to go in here and they'll be on their own. I'll put some food in every once in a while and see how they do. I'm planning on adding some snails and shrimp in here too. But this tank I won't be showing that much just because of the cylinder shape. I can't get a good look at it. I'll never get a round tank again. But it'll just be a low maintenance tank, just putting those in here. There's no, like, the light in the head. The light in the hood doesn't work. I think I'm going to try to get a submersible light of some sort. But yeah, alright. And while we're over here, with my 29-gallon tank next to it, there is the onion plant. Put the bulb in there. Got one of those packages of assorted aquarium bulbs, aquarium plant bulbs, and that is growing and getting pretty tall. Over here I have the Aponigeton. No growth from that one yet. And then this tank is pretty, doesn't have a lot of plants, but a lot of those new plants that I got will be going in here. And when I move those around, I will provide an update. So that's it for now. And remember, I'm Jeff, and I enjoy fishies. Thanks for watching.